What do you mean Dylan will be CEO? I'm the one who saved this hotel. My voice echoed through the elegantly restored lobby of the Coastal Horizon Hotel, bouncing off the nautical-themed decor I'd meticulously designed over the past year. My mother's casual shrug felt like a slap in the face. "Lila, sweetie, your brother has a natural flair for leadership," she said, her tone as dismissive as ever. "You're more suited to handling the operational details." Before I could respond, Dylan strolled in, hands stuffed into his pockets, wearing that insufferable grin he'd had since childhood. "Hey, sis, don't take it personally," he drawled. "Someone's gotta focus on the vision while you handle the grunt work." I'm Lila Morgan, and at 45, I never imagined I'd have to fight for recognition in my own family's business. After 18 successful years managing luxury resorts in California, I gave up my career to save our struggling family hotel on the coast of Maine. The irony? I'm the only one with any hospitality experience, while my younger brother Dylan has drifted from one venture to another, never sticking to anything longer than 6 months. 8 months ago, my father called me, his voice shaky with desperation. "We're weeks away from losing everything, Lila," he said. I didn't hesitate. I sold my house in Napa, cashed out my savings, and moved back home to help. The hotel was a disaster: peeling paint, outdated furniture, no online presence, and reviews that were painful to read. I threw myself into the work, modernizing everything. I updated the reservation system, negotiated with suppliers for better deals, and brought the property into the digital age with a sleek website and an active social media presence. I worked late into the night, poring over spreadsheets, coordinating renovations, and training staff on how to deliver exceptional service. It paid off. The Coastal Horizon Hotel went from a tired relic to a local gem. Bookings soared, and for the first time in years, we were turning a profit. Guests raved about the personalized service, the locally sourced decor, and the stunning renovations. It was my vision, my hard work, that saved this place. But now, standing in the lobby, watching Dylan bask in my parents' misplaced pride, I realized none of that mattered to them. They decided to name Dylan as CEO, and the announcement was happening tonight at the staff meeting, the same meeting where I was supposed to present our record-breaking quarterly results. I could feel the eyes of our team on me. People like Maggie, our head housekeeper who's been here for 25 years, knew who'd turned this hotel around. They knew the truth, but like me, they were forced to play along with this charade. Let me take you back to how we got here. The Coastal Horizon Hotel has been in our family since my grandparents built it in 1965. I grew up here, learning every corner of the business. While other kids played outside, I was helping Mom with reservations and shadowing Dad as he fixed leaky faucets. This hotel was my home, my pride, my legacy. Dylan was different. For years younger, he never cared much for the hotel. While I went to college to study hospitality management, he bounced between interests: marine biology, art school, real estate, before finally deciding he didn't need a career. "He's just creative," my parents would say. "He'll find his way." Meanwhile, I built my career, working my way up from a front desk clerk to a general manager of high-end resorts. I'd earned industry awards and glowing reviews from my peers, but to my family, it was never enough. "That's great, Lila, but when are you coming home?" they'd ask. When Dad called about the hotel's financial troubles, I knew exactly what needed to be done. The place was hemorrhaging money. Online reviews were scathing, outdated and overpriced, desperately needs new management. It broke my heart. I took a leave of absence from my job, which quickly turned into a resignation. I poured every ounce of energy into saving the hotel. The first few months were damage control, fixing broken equipment, revamping the menu, and retraining the staff. Slowly but surely, the Coastal Horizon Hotel regained its charm and reputation. But here I am, sidelined once again. Dylan, with his laid-back attitude and vague ideas about big-picture strategy, is being handed the title I've earned 100 times over. As I prepare for tonight's staff meeting, I can feel the bitterness rising. I've done everything to protect this legacy, and now I have to decide if I'm willing to keep fighting for a family that doesn't value me, or if it's time to build something of my own. "How could you do this, Maddie? We're family." Training staff on basic customer service felt like a never-ending battle. I dipped into my savings to replace the outdated carpeting and give the lobby a much-needed facelift. Every penny I spent was carefully calculated to maximize return on investment. What really gets me is that Dylan wasn't even around during any of this. He was off in Portland, supposedly networking, though everyone knew he was just partying with his friends. Occasionally, he'd show up for a family dinner, toss out a few vague suggestions about modernizing our approach, and disappear again. Yet somehow, in my parents' eyes, his sporadic input was just as valuable as my daily grind. I kept telling myself it would all be worth it, that once they saw the results, the glowing reviews, the increased bookings, and the financial turnaround, they'd finally recognize my value. But I should have known better. The last 3 weeks have been a nightmare. Dylan struts around the Coastal Horizon Hotel like he owns the place, making impulsive changes with zero understanding of how hospitality works. Just yesterday, he announced we were cutting the complimentary breakfast to save money, completely ignoring that it's one of our biggest selling points. When I showed him the guest satisfaction data to back up my argument, he just laughed. "Numbers aren't everything, Maddie," he said with a dismissive shrug. But the breaking point came this morning. I walked in to find Dylan firing Maggie, our head housekeeper, who's been with us for 25 years. His reason? She wasn't adaptable enough for his new scheduling system, a system that would have left us dangerously understaffed during peak checkout times. I managed to intervene and save her job, but the look of humiliation on her face will stay with me. I tried reasoning with my parents. I brought spreadsheets, guest reviews, and financial projections. My dad stared at his coffee while my mom patted my hand and said, "Sweetheart, give Dylan time to find his footing. He has such creative ideas." Driving home that evening, something inside me snapped, or maybe it finally clicked into place. That's when I saw it, the "For Sale" sign on the front lawn of the Seaside Breeze Hotel, our former competitor. It had been shuttered for over a year, but the potential was undeniable. It was closer to the marina, had breathtaking ocean views, and boasted a large banquet hall perfect for weddings and events. Sure, it needed work, but I knew exactly what to do with it. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, staring at that sign and thinking about all the times my parents overlooked me in favor of Dylan. Every achievement dismissed. Every suggestion ignored. Every contribution minimized. Without thinking twice, I called a realtor. The owners were eager to sell, and with my savings and solid credit, I could make it happen. By the time I got home, I had already scheduled a viewing for the next morning. For the first time in months, I felt alive, energized. I didn't have to stand by and watch Dylan destroy everything I'd worked for. Instead, I could build something new, something entirely mine. The next few months were a whirlwind. I poured everything I had into transforming the Seaside Breeze into something extraordinary. While Dylan was busy throwing cocktail parties at the Coastal Horizon, I was working with contractors, designing spaces, and assembling a team of top-tier hospitality professionals. I named the new property the Summit. A little on the nose, perhaps, but I wanted everyone to know exactly what I was aiming for. Word spread quickly. Some called me spiteful for competing with my own family, but others, especially former staff from the Coastal Horizon, cheered me on. My parents tried guilt-tripping me. "How could you do this to Dylan?" "To us?" my mom asked during one of our increasingly rare family dinners. I just smiled and changed the subject. Meanwhile, Dylan's mismanagement was taking its toll on the Coastal Horizon. Negative reviews piled up, citing inconsistent service, maintenance issues, and even cleanliness problems. Guests began looking for alternatives, and they found them at the Summit. The Summit quickly became the talk of the town. Guests raved about the breathtaking views, luxurious rooms, and unparalleled service. Weddings were booked months in advance, and the restaurant became a local hotspot. I was finally doing what I loved on my terms. Dylan's downward spiral only made the contrast clearer. My parents finally realized their mistake, but by then, it was too late. I didn't need their approval anymore. I'd built something of my own, something better. Now, as I stand in the Summit's gleaming lobby, watching happy guests and a thriving team, I know I made the right choice. Let them see what they gave up when they chose him over me. I don't need to prove myself to them anymore. I've already won. 3 longtime staff members quit within the first month of Dylan's leadership. Word around town was that the Coastal Horizon Hotel had to slash its rates just to keep rooms occupied. Meanwhile, 6 months after that fateful day in the lobby, the summit had its grand opening. I'll never forget the look on my family's faces when they walked in, Mom's tight smile barely masking her shock, Dad's wide eyes scanning the packed house, and Dylan's poorly concealed anger. The local paper was there, snapping photos and interviewing guests about the coastal town's newest luxury destination. When Dylan cornered me by the bar, his voice was a low hiss. "You're trying to destroy us, Maddie. This is a direct attack on our family." I just smiled and replied, "No, Dylan. This is me succeeding despite our family." The contrast between the two hotels couldn't have been more striking. While the Coastal Horizon struggled with basic upkeep, the summit was the talk of the town, celebrated for its eco-friendly initiatives and high-end amenities. Every idea I had dreamed of implementing at my family's hotel, only to have them dismissed, was now a reality. From the locally sourced restaurant menu to the state-of-the-art spa facilities, everything was exactly as I'd envisioned. But success didn't come without its challenges. Other hotels began mimicking our innovative booking system, and whispers started circulating in town. Old friends of my parents accused me of tearing the family apart. Even some of my former guests expressed guilt for choosing sides. The real difficulties came as the summit gained momentum. My former vendors from the Coastal Horizon began facing pressure not to work with me. Mom's social influence in town ran deep, and some longtime family friends stopped meeting me for coffee. I even lost my position on the local tourism board. Conflict of interest, they claimed. But I wasn't about to let small-town politics derail everything I'd built. When local vendors hesitated, I found better ones in Portland. When the tourism board shut me out, I focused on forging direct partnerships with tour operators. Every obstacle only pushed me to innovate and work harder. Then came the ultimate test. One morning, Mom and Dad showed up at my office, looking worn and worried. Dylan's mismanagement had finally caught up to them. The bank was threatening to call in their loans. They wanted me to come back, not as CEO, of course, but to help Dylan learn the ropes. "We're family, Maddie," Mom pleaded. "You can't let the hotel fail." I looked at them, sitting across from me in the office I'd built from the ground up, and felt an odd sense of calm. "I offered to help 8 months ago," I said. "You chose Dylan. Now you have to live with that choice." Dad tried a softer approach. "Think about your grandfather's legacy," he said quietly. "This hotel has been in our family for generations. And I tried to preserve that legacy," I shot back. "You're the ones who handed it to someone who treats it like his personal playground." The whispers around town grew louder after that. I became the ungrateful daughter, the bitter sister, the woman who turned against her family out of spite. Some days, those rumors hurt more than I liked to admit. But every morning, I'd walk into the summit's gleaming lobby, see my vision come to life, and know I'd made the right choice. My team became my new family. Many were former Coastal Horizon employees who'd grown tired of Dylan's chaotic management. They understood that what I was building wasn't about revenge. It was about creating something meaningful, something we could all be proud of. The breaking point came during the annual Maine Luxury Hotels Awards. The summit was nominated for Best New Boutique Hotel, while the Coastal Horizon was conspicuously absent from any category. As I sat in the ballroom surrounded by my team, they announced the summit as the winner. Walking to the stage, I spotted my parents in the back of the room. They'd shown up unannounced, probably expecting to support their family hotel as they had in the past. The look on their faces said it all. Mom was fighting back tears, and Dad looked like he'd aged a decade. Dylan, of course, wasn't there. He'd stopped attending industry events months ago, claiming they were a waste of time. Standing at the podium with the award in my hands, I felt a wave of emotions. Pride, validation, and a touch of sadness. My success had come at a cost, but it was a cost I was willing to pay. I'd spent my life fighting for recognition, for a place at the table. Now I had my own table, one I built with hard work, vision, and determination. My family might never understand, But as I looked out at my team cheering in the audience, I knew I didn't need their approval anymore. The summit was my legacy now. Everyone in the room knew what the moment meant. The student had officially surpassed the teacher. The detail-oriented daughter they dismissed had built something better than the family legacy they hadn't trusted her to lead. During my acceptance speech at the main luxury hotel's awards, I thanked my team, our guests, and even mentioned the Coastal Horizon Hotel, where I first fell in love with hospitality. The crowd's subtle shifting told me they caught the edge in my tone, though I kept my words polished. Afterward, the moment that truly changed everything came when a renowned travel magazine editor approached me for an interview. As we talked about the summit's success, I noticed my parents lingering nearby, clearly listening. They heard every word as I explained my journey, including how being passed over for CEO at my family's hotel had driven me to build something of my own. Sometimes the best success stories come from being underestimated, I said, my voice carrying just enough to reach their ears. Later that evening, the editor told me their upcoming issue would name the summit as Best New Boutique Hotel in New England. The same issue would feature an exposé on traditional hotels struggling to adapt, with the Coastal Horizon Hotel as their prime example. When the article came out, it hit our small town like a bomb. For years, I'd endured whispers accusing me of being spiteful, selfish, and ungrateful. But the article forced people to acknowledge the truth. I'd built something extraordinary, while the Coastal Horizon Hotel was failing, not because of me, but because of its leadership. Looking back, it's impossible not to feel a mix of emotions. Part of me still aches from how my parents treated me, dismissing everything I did as if it meant nothing. But another part of me, maybe the bigger part, feels liberated. I'm finally living life on my terms, no longer waiting for someone else's validation. Every morning, when I walk into the summit's vibrant lobby, I'm reminded of what I built with my own two hands. Guests chat excitedly about their plans for the day while the staff moves with effortless efficiency, greeting each person with warm smiles. The faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the salty ocean breeze that drifts in when the doors open. It's everything I ever wanted the Coastal Horizon Hotel to be. My team has become my new family in ways I never expected. Many of them, like Sarah and Maria, are former employees of my parents' hotel who left because they saw the same lack of leadership I did. Their loyalty humbles me. Sarah often jokes, "It's nice to finally feel like my experience and ideas matter." I know exactly how she feels. Outside of work, I've started reconnecting with old friends. For years, I was so focused on proving myself to my parents that I let important relationships slip away. Now I'm making time for coffee dates, beach walks, and dinner parties. Some of the townspeople who once criticized me for competing with my family have even admitted they admire what I've accomplished. Hosting events at the summit has also helped me rebuild ties with the community. Just last month, we hosted a fundraiser for the local animal shelter in our new event space, and it was a huge success. Seeing people come together for a good cause reminded me why I fell in love with hospitality in the first place, to create spaces that bring people joy and comfort. But it's not all perfect. On quiet evenings, I sometimes think about my parents and Dylan. As much as they've hurt me, I wish things could be different. I wonder if they'll ever understand the sacrifices I made to save our family's legacy. Still, I've come to realize that their approval isn't something I need anymore. My success and happiness are mine alone, and no one can take them away. For too long, I lived in the shadow of their expectations. Now, I'm finally standing in my own light. It was about 3 weeks after the awards ceremony when my parents finally reached out. They asked me to come over for dinner, just the three of us. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to decline. But another part of me, perhaps the part still hoping for a connection, agreed. That dinner would be another turning point, though not in the way I expected. I decided to go. Not because I was expecting an apology, but because I wanted to hear what my parents had to say. As I pulled up to their house, I felt a strange mix of curiosity and apprehension. The atmosphere was different. My mom greeted me with a nervous smile, and my dad avoided eye contact, fidgeting with his watch, the same habit he always had when he was uncomfortable. Over dinner, they stuck to small talk at first. My mom commented on the unusually warm weather for the season, and my dad mentioned hearing about the summit's latest five-star review. I could tell they were building up to something. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "Maddie, we wanted to say we're proud of what you've accomplished," he said. My mom quickly added, "We know we haven't been fair to you." For a moment, I didn't respond. I let their words linger while I studied them. My mom clutched her wine glass tightly, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the stem. My dad stared at the tablecloth like it held all the answers to life's problems. "I offered to help a year ago," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I gave up my life in Portland to save the Coastal Horizon Hotel. You chose to put Dylan in charge, knowing he wasn't ready." My dad muttered something about understanding my position, though the disappointment on his face was clear. My mom looked like she wanted to argue, but for once, she didn't. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. Setting those boundaries wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time, I wasn't bending over backward to make my parents happy or cleaning up Dylan's messes. I was choosing myself, my happiness, my future. In the weeks after dinner with my parents, I noticed a shift in myself. Saying no became easier. I stopped seeking their approval, trusting my own decisions instead. The Coastal Horizon Hotel continued to decline, though I heard they finally hired a professional consultant to salvage what they could. Dylan and I barely spoke, but I no longer needed his acknowledgement or apology. His bitterness was his burden, not mine. The summit became my sanctuary, a living reflection of my resilience, vision, and independence. Every morning, I'd walk into the vibrant lobby, alive with the buzz of excited guests and the efficiency of my team. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the salty ocean breeze, and I felt immense pride in what I'd built. For so long, I carried the weight of unmet expectations and familial disappointment. Letting go of the hope that my family would change was painful, but it was also freeing. I realized I didn't need their approval to feel whole. The journey wasn't just about building a successful hotel, it was about finding myself. Every challenge and setback taught me to stand tall, to trust my instincts, and to embrace my independence. When the summit was announced as Best New Boutique Hotel in New England, the room erupted in applause. As I accepted the award, I caught sight of my parents in the back of the ballroom. My dad gave a small nod, and my mom's eyes glistened with unshed tears. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was acknowledgement, a step forward. That night, as I celebrated with my team, I felt a deep sense of peace. I'd let go of what no longer served me and embraced the life I wanted. My success, my happiness, they were mine, earned with grit and grace. In today's fast-paced world, Maddie's journey reminds us all to prioritize what truly matters, ourselves, our values, and the courage to build the life we deserve. Advice from my perspective. I spent years chasing recognition from my family, sacrificing myself to please them, but eventually, I realized I couldn't live that way anymore. The first lesson I learned is that you can't give to others if you're running on empty. I used to pour all my energy into saving the family hotel, working myself to exhaustion, but all I got in return was disregard and criticism. It wasn't until I started investing my time and energy into myself that things began to change. I became more effective, more creative, and, most importantly, happier. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's the only way to create something truly valuable. Another lesson that's equally important is the need to set boundaries. In the past, I never said no to my family. I thought that going along with their wishes was how I could prove my love and dedication. But boundaries are how you show respect for yourself and ensure others do the same. When I refused to go back and clean up Dylan's mess, I wasn't just freeing myself from a toxic cycle, I was sending the message that I deserved to be valued. Setting boundaries isn't easy, but it's necessary to live a life where you're in control, not at the mercy of others' expectations. Finally, I learned to let go of the need for validation. When I was younger, I craved acknowledgement from my parents. But this journey taught me that my worth isn't defined by others. Success isn't about proving something to anyone, it's about living in alignment with who you are. Every day I step into the summit, I see my success reflected in a dedicated team and the satisfied smiles of our guests. I no longer need anyone else to define my worth. This journey has freed me, and I know my happiness and success are entirely my own.